Hey, Mortgage Coach community, Dave Savage here, and today I have back for part two, Julian Hebron. What's up, Julian?
Hey, Dave. How's it going? Good to be back.
Good to have you back. By the way, the last call we did where you talked about how can loan officers avoid being disrupted has got just a tremendous amount of feedback. The basis point, it's a reminder to me just how good it is. And what you're doing on Twitter is awesome. I'm following it more than ever. So it's good to have you back to have a bigger conversation.
Thank you, man. Yeah, it's funny about Twitter, especially in our industry, because it's notoriously hard to engage on Twitter, especially if you compare it to something like Instagram, right? Where you put something up and people jump in and comment and like right away. Twitter's trickier that way, but it does enable it's formed my philosophy on how I like to share things, and I like to bring really big concepts down to some chunky sound bites and stats, and that's sort of my art form. So I do appreciate that very much for you and anyone else that's interested on that. But I also do it on Instagram now too.
No, that's good. Well, I've always been an Instagram guy and Facebook, but I never I hadn't used Facebook or Twitter in years, other than, hey, when we post a new interview, we always just tweet it, hey, we push the button. It's like a notification engine. But I hadn't really been following people until all of the great takeaways that you had at the mastermind event a few weeks ago. So anyways, thanks for that.
Yeah,
so
likewise.
So today I want to transition that conversation. We want to transition that conversation to lenders in the C-suite. There's a lot of talk of disruption, Amazon mortgage is coming. Let's face it, technology companies that are lenders are growing rapidly. And at the end of the day, my people are local loan officers and lenders. I want them to kill it. And so if you don't mind, let's unpack that, at the lender C-suite level. What can we do to not get disrupted today or 5 years from now?
Yeah, so as you said, part one was about LOs. Part two, let's jump into some of the company and the exec stuff. But spoiler alert, LOs are still really, really critical to this. But to unpack it a little bit, I thought it would be good to just cover some stats. Again, that a lot of people talk stats, but they don't always talk about them in the same context that I tend to view it. So everyone kind of knows that the industry size is between 1.7 and 2 trillion, right? And everyone knows that, in 2016, it was 50-50 purchase refi, and in 2018, it's going to be 75-25 purchase refi. But coming back to that macro stat, yes, the industry is huge, but it's not growing. So market share just moves around. So when we think of the disruptors, they know this, and they're studying this. So then you've got who's doing the business, right? Stratmore says that 40% of producers do 80% of the volume. So we also know this. And so we have this very fractured market share. I covered last time, but I'll reiterate, 0.03% market share in our giant industry is a $6 billion mortgage bank, right? So it's very, very fractured. And I do believe that's going to change as this massive capital pours in. So let me give a couple quick examples. Number one, in terms of unicorns, fund companies with funding greater than $1 billion, there's 26 unicorns right now in fintech. And those are in aggregate valued at about $77 billion. Global VC-backed equity funding in the first quarter alone was $5.2 billion across 323 deals, most of which are in North America. And here's some closer to home stuff to put this all into perspective. SoFi, which we all know of, and then Open Door is a firm that's emerging. Those firms both have raised $2 billion in funding. And wow. So it's easy for everybody to say, hey, but they've stumbled. SoFi has stumbled on mortgage. So what? With that kind of money, they're still looking. Both companies today, right now, if you go to each website and their job postings, they're both looking for senior executive level talent to come in and build scale mortgage divisions for them. And they have the backing of firms like SoftBank, which have a $100 billion technology fund. So $2 billion could be the tip of the iceberg in terms of the funding they're going to receive. So that's just the perspective of how big it is. And the only other layer I'm going to add on top of all of that is, do you remember when Amazon increased the price of Prime a couple months ago?
Totally.
As consumers, we're like, okay, it's $20, but you know what? I get this ton of value out of it. Think about this for a second. They have 100 million subscribers to Prime. So that's $2 billion for doing nothing, right? They just flip the switch, raise it $20. That's $2 billion. Now, they could deploy that to any business, but everyone knows that they're talking about mortgage. Now, think about that. What if they just said, all right, well, all $2 billion of that is going to go into mortgage for a couple of years. They could just cut pricing to the bone for as long as it took them to build market share. So that's the last one in terms of how real the long game on disruption is, right?
Yeah. So by the way, let's pause for a minute.
Yeah.
And let's really soak in that. Guys, think about it. Like, because I use Prime. I order from Amazon. And let's say Prime also said, hey, you know what? If you want to get debt really easy, just, click this button. And now getting approved for a mortgage would be easy. What if they really expanded that? And, you could literally, go, Alexa, I want to get pre-qualified for a $200,000 loan. It's mind-boggling. And by the way, the guys from RE Source, Ryan Hill, good friends of mine, they did a video, which was not a spoof, but they kind of played up, what if Amazon Prime really drove a mortgage? You should check out that video. I'll put it down below. Also, folks, I want to make sure if you're watching this and you didn't see that part one I did with Julian, part one is going to be down below. You're watching this in YouTube. Part one's down below. Don't pause and go watch it. Just add that if you got value from today's interview. It's something else for you to check out. So anyways, you got us all scared. And the way you said it, you got me even a little more, you got my attention. Now what?
All right. So here's what's interesting though. Okay. So that's all just a way of saying, hey, with money that big coming into our world, it is in fact a long game, and it is going to disrupt the industry, right? So we can all make justifications, but let's be real. And those are the real stats. Okay. But the people backing these kinds of companies, they define disruption as a winner take most proposition, right? We tend to view this very fractured market as an opportunity. I think it'll remain an opportunity for a great deal of companies out there, because I think the consolidation plays out predominantly in the 5 billion and above category of firms, because that's where the big investment money is interested in making acquisitions. So that's just my own personal note on the matter. So that's all going to continue. But for the top LOs, let's come back to LOs for a second. Remember, 40% of producers are doing 80% of the volume. And it's because they're getting to the customer first. They know how to get to the customer. And it will continue with those folks. But think about what these disruptors are thinking about is, okay, you've got 60% of LOs out there, the other 60% who are not quite the top producers, that might be strong at serving customers, but maybe they're not great at getting to them quick enough. So, certain companies and execs can think about, all right, well, what if we could find the customer and let the LO do the rest? That goes to saying, let's allocate more bips to that. And for those folks, that 60% of the sales force, if you will, they might get lower bips, but it would probably also mean higher volume. So it could be a win for them, right? But in the next segment, what I wanted to do is say, how can you leverage what the top folks are doing and deploy it across the whole firm? But I'm going to pause there for a moment.
Yeah. So let's do this, because I know, I advise the C-suite on how to improve conversion rates. Dave, what can we do right now to reduce pricing exceptions? Profitability is a big problem right now. In the trenches, when you talk to loan officers, it's like, hey, my pre-approval funnel, it's bigger than ever, but the conversion of my pre-approval funnel, it's more work than ever, and my conversions are down. And by the way, if you're a branch manager or a loan officer, and you're not surpassing your goals that you kicked off this year saying, hey, these are my goals for the year. If you're not surpassing that, please go and analyze your pre-approval funnel, your conversion, compare it to last year. And 9 out of 10 times, it's like, that's what you got to do. It's not that you don't have more families to pre-approve and realtors. By the way, I'm not saying you don't need more realtor relationships. You don't need more leads. But so often, it's just that conversion. And then, by the way, one other thing, because you guys are doing the same thing that you did last year, is you're getting great shops and you're losing more than ever. Because, you know, and if you guys are watching this and you didn't listen to my interview with Jack Daly the other day, I'm going to put a link down below. Not going to do a big testimonial on who he is right now, but it was a conversation about conversion from a guy that consults some of the biggest companies in the country outside the mortgage industry and inside the mortgage industry. And he talked about conversion. And so, you know, it's an issue. So Julian, why don't you break that down a little bit and let's try to, I want to make sure like you and I are going to keep having conversations like this. So
yeah,
we're going to get done here. Let's do part 3. And who knows, this might become a series. So right now we're on number 2, but let's make sure we really unpack where the puck's going. Like, I think there's a race to 2020, and every C-suite executive and every branch manager needs to be preparing their sales force for 2020. And then they need to do it in a way that crushes it right now, spring home buying season. I want to prepare for 2020, but I want to kill it today. And I want to survive 5 years from now.
Yep.
I know I said a lot. And
okay. So I want to combine what I just said with what you just said. So a lot of the execs that would be watching this and hear what I'm saying about, okay, let's focus, you know, meaningful basis points on customer acquisition for the 60% of our sales force who's not great at getting it themselves. And they're like, yeah, dude, easier said than done. It's hard. We've tried it. We've failed. In other words, am I starting a direct division and acquiring customers? That's a very difficult proposition, especially in the context that you just underlined, which again is in a 50-50 purchase refi market. It's okay because you can maybe convert those refis a lot faster, but purchases sit and you're just bleeding out on those leads that you paid for. So going back to Daly and what he said is about a playbook, right? Companies, you know, he was talking LO level, you got to have a playbook. And what I just left off my last segment on was, okay, how can you take what those top 40% are doing, replicate it, and deploy it across the sales force? And this goes to technology adoption. Everybody has spent a ton of money on all these systems and tools over the past few years, and you're starting to say, okay, am I getting adoption, and how can I get more adoption? So that's, if you want to spend a few minutes covering that right now, we can dive into it.
Well, I do want to do it because, by the way, that is, you know, when I think of how can I serve the customers that are my customers, it is getting more adoption. And, you know, and when we're out selling mortgage coach, hey, you need to be on the team, you know, sign up and solution solve, problem solve. It's like, well, are enough of my loan officers going to use it? I want to say one more thing, and then I want to hand it off to you, is, guys, adoption isn't an option. You know, I mean, if you do not get your sales force, and by the way, if you're a loan officer and you're listening to this, if you do not use your CRM daily, if you do not, you know, whatever the point of sale solution is that your company provides you to drive an efficient application experience, if you're not using Mortgage Coach to be an advisor, because again, I believe that if you want to go to work for a call center and make 40 basis points as an originator doing transactions, okay, maybe you don't need to listen to me. But if you want to be a premium, local, referral-based loan officer and make, you know, real money in this business, you need to deliver advice, and you need automation like Mortgage Coach to do it. So you need to do those 3 things. And I guess I'll say this, and then I'm handing it to you. Adoption isn't an option, because if you're not there in 2020 and beyond, the internet, you know, the tech companies that are doing mortgages, they're going to do it. And it's just going to be painful. Your turn.
Yeah. And everything I said in that last segment was all about that. It's like, whether or not you agree, whether this stuff is coming with the disruption, it's coming. But with all that said, let's stick to the script, so to speak. So we said last time that LOs need to focus on one or two shiny objects, not every single one, right? Just get focused on a couple tools you're using. It's the same thing with companies, right? So the smart firms are learning how to marry the best of what those top 40 locally based, referral-based LOs are doing with the digital tool set we all have access to, or that you gave them access to, and deploy it across their sales force, right? So to kind of get a little more granular on that, we all know that for LOs and companies, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn are basically our media, right? That's what we need to use to be the media, right? And everyone sort of gets told that. And when you start doing it, everyone knows also, you learn real quick, it's a little bit harder than it looks to kind of figure out what works. And most important is just making noise and attracting eyeballs is not what it's about. It doesn't mean anything if you can't convert, right? And so I will set up what I define as the funnel, and then we can use some of the tools to drive down of what companies and LOs can do. But the way I define a funnel is in 4 stages. Everyone has different funnel activity, but the top of the funnel is acquiring the customer. Second stage is cultivate. Third stage is close. Fourth stage is amaze, right? And it's this repetitive cycle of the funnel. So I'm going to stop there to see if you have any questions on that, and then we can apply tools to it.
So acquire, call it lead. And then what?
Attract, cultivate, close, amaze.
Okay. So and close would be like, LOS, transaction, generate lead is kind of media, outside sources to make it rain. And then kind of that middle is convert, which I would assume is where Mortgage Coach fits in.
I think Mortgage Coach comes in, I'm going to cover this more in a minute, but they come in there, but they also can come in at the bottom. So with respect to things like annual reviews and so forth, right? That's where Mortgage Coach is both the cultivate stage and moving just into the closing stage. And then of course that bottom stage of amaze and managing the relationship ongoing if you're a power user.
Love that. So one more resource I want to plug for anybody listening to this. We have what we call the lead conversion playbook. I'm going to put a link down below. And the thing I love about that, while you say it differently, I always think like convert, the industry focuses on, hey, I am going to meet with you as a prospect and I'm going to convert you into a transaction. Give me your social security number, tell me your closing date, trust me to close your loan. And I've always kind of said, no, convert, that's second base, but convert is client for life, where they're pulling through, they're doing every transaction with you. And so anyways, I'll let you keep going, but I love it because I think that's a huge miss in the industry. No one effectively, systematically, and organizationally does the amaze part. I don't think.
Well, so speaking to the execs watching this, they all know just how hard it is to manage that bottom of the funnel, because amaze also gets into cross-sell. And if you're a mortgage-only shop and don't have other products, that's where many companies are evaluating. I'm starting to hear more now about, hey, we're thinking about buying a bank. Again, these were trends that were happening in the previous era, and now that's warming up again. So that's part of it. I don't want to complicate this, but let's come back to the tactical stuff. So let me come back to the top of the funnel. Okay. So here's an interesting one. So a lot of companies out there either use a proprietary tool set, or so many use, our friend Scott Harris's company Social Survey to survey customers, which by the way is a little bit, it's more bottom of the funnel. But here's what's interesting about how a company like that is evolving. You have to have all your agents plugged into their social accounts to be able to deploy the results of those surveys and share them. So what they learned is they're adding this new product called Social Monitor. What Social Monitor does for companies is it enables you to watch everything your LOs are doing on social so that you can basically turn them loose. right? That's been the biggest challenge, compliance challenge of how are that top 40% of LOs, let's say, that are really good, how are they going to get good at social and attracting customers if they're handcuffed from a compliance standpoint? So a tool like that, as this industry and the tool set is evolving, would enable them to say, okay, go wild. We have real-time mechanisms for tracking and sort of controlling things when you get out of control, but that way they get to learn. The reason I think this is special as it matures is that you then get not only let's say those top 40 LOs, top 40% that we're talking about, and then of course execs to start to play on social and figure out what's working in terms of attracting a customer. And I'm going to add another layer to that in a second in terms of how you're going to manage that down the funnel. But that's a great way to introduce social into the top of the funnel in a real way where companies and execs can control it, but let their top people experiment in the way that you must on social if you're going to get it right.
So I want to insert something right there. That, by the way, that fits into different places in the cycle in our lead conversion playbook. That's strategy number 7. And when I, interview and study the nation's most successful mortgage advisors, they're delivering 5-star experiences. They're collecting them because it's social proof. So, it helps in the conversion. So, I know you covered that strategy and that technology a little differently than I did. But, because I'm all about conversion, again, not just conversion into a high profitable transaction that doesn't ask for a price exception because so much value and advice was delivered. And by the way, if you do get in the rate shopping war, which you do, you are prepared to win, even if your rate's an eighth or a quarter different. If you follow the playbook and you really delivered a high value local experience, you still win the business, even if your rate's not the best. So I just wanted to insert that strategy and social surveying, Scott, good friends of ours, we've got a lot of common customers, definitely a best of breed platform. Next.
So so here it is though. So as I said, that's top, right? Then, okay, you're going to find out that it actually works and you can attract these customers. So you need a couple things, right? You do need, as you said, a CRM that can kind of say, okay, well, I know I found these folks. Which social account did I find them on? And you need to be able to tie that so you have ROI on where you're spending your time on social. But then as you move into that cultivate phase, as I call it, conversion, cultivate, same word, right? That's that second stage of how at least I'm defining the funnel. And that's where your tool set comes in, but also a CRM, whatever you're using, proprietary, total expert, top of mind, etc., have these very sophisticated mechanisms of saying, hey, I know that this person came from Instagram. I know now I'm in phase 2 that I've done a total cost analysis and I can track each activity that I'm using in that cultivate phase until I get them actually into contract, let's say on a purchase loan, right? So that's where sort of 3 different tool sets kind of come together if you're viewing it as a funnel. So we're ultimately saying the same thing, just slightly different methodologies. And I don't mean to confuse your audience, and I have seen your playbook, and I do recommend it.
Yeah, no, thank you, Julian. And again, my message on CRM is that you need to use it. Again, at Mortgage Coach, we take the philosophy that the lenders and the partners that we have, the CRM that you take, we'll integrate with that. So, we've got an incredible integration with Jungo, with Top of Mind, as you talked about, Cimarron, all the top CRMs integrate with Mortgage Coach. And if they don't, Velma has an integration, Encompass. And if they don't, they're working on it. They will. So, but my message I want to connect, like if you're a branch manager listening to this right now, I see the C-suite having a hard time getting their sales force to adopt, any one CRM. And I think the message that you need to get behind is that most of the top companies now, they're putting a lot of money into this. They're putting a lot of time and money into integration. And you will benefit if you're a team player. So that the technology that your C-suite is using, adopt that. Because it's going to work with Mortgage Coach. It's going to work for you. And remember, you're not just worried about today, you're worried about 2020 and beyond. And if you're using, call it fragmented systems, it makes things tougher for you. I don't know your thoughts on that. Now again, with that said, if you're a big team and you're closing 100 plus units a year and you have something that works, I'll leave that between you and your management team. When I interviewed Jack Taylor, he took a really hard position on that at the end. It's like, hey, either get on the bus and use our tech stack, or you know what, we're going to have to, move on. I do think if someone is using a tech stack, and I also are seeing more and more lenders where they might have two CRMs, they might have a couple solutions within their playbook where they invest resources. So I just want to emphasize, if you're watching this, you're in the mortgage coach community, you need to up your game and you need to rock it out. Julian.
Here's my thought on that, is that in a practical sense, what I have been saying, and maybe I haven't said it clear enough, so I'm going to underline it now. Those top 40%, yes, they do have influence with you, the management team, and therefore the whole company. So if don't mean to state the obvious, but if you can win them on your platform and have them become the evangelist, that's the obvious way to adoption, right? But most important is it's not just about a basic CRM that says, okay, here's my context. It's about tracking from that Instagram post all the way down the funnel to a closed loan, right? And these tools, like a Total Expert, can do that for you. And if you can measure the ROI and not just the funded unit, that's what you need to do. And you need to use your top people to do that. And here's the biggest part that I recommend. Fund a couple of top LOs to be amazing on social and get them a video crew and follow them around and let them be ultra superstars on social as long as they track it through your CRM system so that you can start to learn how to measure that ROI from first social post to funded loan. And if you do that, that would be worth the money in terms of not only driving funded units with your top people, but driving adoption of that technology.
I love that. And, that fits so much into our adoption playbook because when we come into a company, often we have power users that are top 1%ers. And two, we're all about identifying, who are the ambassadors, folks that, usually it's a branch manager, a regional leader, who are the mentors, who are the people that if, they have influence within the organization, if they follow the playbook, 20, 30 people come with them. Now, one of the reasons why I do these interviews is because to interview those top people and use them to drive mortgage coach adoption, mortgage coach sales success. But I would just say, like, when I look at the lenders that I have that have the best adoption, they pretty much do what you said. They do a great job of creating those ambassadors / mentors, packaging it and promoting it. But to your point, the whole industry needs to do a lot better job of that. I totally agree.
Yeah, all I'm saying is that from a marketing perspective, you're saying, okay, I have my corporate marketing budget, and then the LOs are off kind of doing their thing, and they're being maybe sometimes more creative than a marketing department is. And you start, again, from that top of the funnel of like, hey, if it's all about social, then we're going to put some money behind a few of our key people to have them completely master social, as long as they are working with us to track it through our chosen CRM to make sure that we can measure the ROI on it.
Love it. Well, by the way, let's do this, because one of the goals is we're going to do these calls. We've gone over 20 minutes on this one. Our goal is always like, let's do a 20-minute call, but I know you and we've got so much to say. Why don't you cover the Amaze part, because I want to make sure, there's clarity around where Mortgage Coach fits into your funnel. And I want to make sure that executives, recognize when they think of us, it's, hey, we're the company and the partner that improves your conversion, reduces price exceptions, and really drives profitability, So talk about that, and then let's plan a part 3 and keep this conversation going.
Yeah, like I said, and I'll repeat one thing, two. One is that the true amaze part ultimately goes to in a scale org. Again, if you go back to how the disruptors are thinking, it's like, hey, we want to be able to cross-sell and be with somebody through their entire financial life cycle. But if you're mortgage only, that's okay. That's where adding value in a quantitative, like actual financial advisory manner matters. And that's what the Mortgage Coach tool set does for you. It's not just a transactional tool set. That's what people forget. And that's why I used the word power user before, because if you don't even have to be a power user, because the tool is just not that hard to use. You just have to have some discipline around it, especially at those times of the year when you sometimes want to, take an extra breather. But all I would say is that if you use that component of Dave's tool set, that is bottom of the funnel activity for you. And it's something you already have. Maybe you're just not haven't dove in that deep yet.
Yeah, and you just haven't built the culture that does that. Again, we've got a lot of lenders that have. So let's do this. Let's take a break and let's get another one on the calendar. If you're watching this and you got a takeaway from it, give us a like. Just like it so that Julian and I know that, hey, that was good. And by the way, if you are a leader, we encourage you to share this with your sales force, share this with your management team. I know the last one you and I did, we had a lot of shares. If you're watching this in LinkedIn, just liking it helps us get this message out to a broader audience. Both Julian and I are dedicated to helping local referral-based lenders not just survive disruption, but thrive and rapidly execute to 2020. If you're a loan officer or branch manager, click down below, demo a mortgage coach. If you're a C-suite executive and you'd like us to have come in and talk, email dave@mortgagecoach.com. And then Julian, I believe in you. You've been a user of our product. You've been a C-suite executive that has rolled out Mortgage Coach, in both organizations. You were an advocate and a decision maker. How can people get a hold of you who want to consult with you, who want to, get more from you or hire you as a keynote speaker, which, by the way, highly recommend. But how can they connect with you?
Yeah, thank you, Dave. So the easiest way is my first name, Julian, Julian, @thebasispoint.com. That's my direct email. And then you can reach out through LinkedIn, of course. And then my primary handles where I'm the most active on social are Twitter and Facebook, which are both The Basis Point. But yes, thank you for both of those plugs. And I'm at everybody's service on those things.
Yeah, and his content is great. Just following him on Twitter keeps you smarter. It's one thing I've always liked about you, dating back to all the years. It's like your content is just pure value. I mean, you want to be smart on the mortgage business. You want to know where it's going. You want to have some talking points to bring back to your team. Follow Julian. I mean, I'm sure I've used some of your stuff and never given you credit for it because I've always been such a fan. So again, give us a like, give us a share. Hopefully this has been a valuable, 30 minutes. And next time we show up, we'll do a 10 to 20 minute part 3 to this conversation. And if you have a question for Julian and you want us to cover it in the next interview, put that below in comments. Take care, everybody. Thank you, Julian.
Thank you.